They got it over to Ben Killam's place, though.
Good morning, everybody.
Any word on the plaques?
And I'd like to welcome everyone to the standardized official ballot referendum meeting for the town of Lee. Each member of this deliberative body who wishes to vote in this meeting should have checked in with the ballot clerks and received a voting card. If you are a registered voter and have not checked in yet, please do so now. Those individuals present who are not registered voters in the town of Lee may not motion, amend, nor vote today, but are permitted to participate in discussion or debate. Going forward, the moderator does not strictly adhere to Robert's Rules of Order. I would like to see courtesy, civility, consideration, and common sense guide this deliberative session. I invite all present to participate in honest discussion and lively debate, keeping these guidelines in mind. Our meeting today is for the transaction of all business other than voting by official ballot. This first session shall consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article. Our business today is to consider each warrant article and, within the limits of the law, determine the details of those articles to be voted by official ballot at the March 12th second session. Amendments to articles are in order and will be voted at this meeting. However, at the conclusion of our deliberation on each article, we will not actually vote. Instead, the town clerk will place the warrant article on the official ballot. Our order of the day is the town warrant. Each article will be read, a motion made to place it on the official ballot, and a second for that motion. The maker of the motion will then have the first opportunity to speak. Then the floor will be open for all, for discussion and amendments if necessary. If you wish to address the meeting, please approach the microphone where the moderator will recognize each member in turn. When you are recognized, please clearly state your name and address. All remarks are to be directed to the moderator. Remember to speak directly into the microphone so that our town clerk may have an accurate record of this meeting. In fairness to all, you may speak as many times as you wish, but all members who wish to speak will have a first turn before any will have a second. I also ask that you keep your comments and discussion pertinent to the specific warrant article, and we ask that you limit each time to 3 minutes. If at any time something is not clear to you, please ask, and you can do that at any time during the meeting by just stepping up to the microphone. At this time, all rise please for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. This time I'd like to introduce our legislative body. To my right, I have John LaCourse, Scott Bugby, Harry Brown. We have our administrative assistant, Julie Glover, and we have her admin, our administrator, and her assistant, Denise Duval. To my left, I have my assistant moderator, Bill Stetson, our town clerk, Linda Reinhold, and her deputy town clerk, Liz Stone. Julie, do you wish to address any of the key points of the PowerPoint? No. Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to open up with warrant article number 1. That is the election of our town officers. And the warrant article states, to choose all necessary town officers for the ensuing year. Position available, selectman, 3-year term, 1 available, running Carrie Brown. Treasurer, 3-year term, 1 available, running Ben Jeans. Trustee of the Trust Funds, 3-year term, 1 available. Library Trustee, 3-year term, 2 available, Katrinka Palekia. Cemetery Trustee, 3-year term, 1 position available, Peter Hoyt. Advisory Budget Committee, 3-year term, 2 available, Scott Bugby, Tom Murdoch. As there are to be no elections at this time, no voting, I will ask our town clerk to please place warrant article number 1 on the ballot. Karen Rossi, would you kindly come and present warrant article number 2?
Good morning. Warrant article number 2, zoning ordinance. Are you in favor of the adoption of amendment number 1 as proposed by the planning board for the zoning ordinance as follows? Extend the existing commercial zone along the southerly side of Route 4, known as Concord Road, from 60 Concord Road, Dollar General, to the intersection of Route 4 and Sheep Road with a depth of 500 feet. On the northerly side of Route 4, extend the existing commercial zone an additional 2,400 feet with a depth of 500 feet. Majority vote is required for this change. B, clarify the frontage requirement in all sections of the ordinance to include the word contiguous in order to be consistent with the definition of frontage. Majority vote is required for this. C, include bed and breakfast in the definitions, and that definition is an owner-occupied dwelling providing sleeping accommodations for no more than 10 people, with each person staying no more than 10 consecutive days, which may also offer a morning meal. The term bed and breakfast shall include all such accommodations, regardless of the manner or form such accommodations are being offered to the public. This also requires majority vote. D, delete the current definitions of agricultural farming, farm market, roadside farm stand, and ag tourism and simply reference New Hampshire RSA 2134A as amended in our zoning ordinance. Majority vote required. And E, amend the terms in the agricultural signage section to be consistent with Article 2 definition and Article 3 purpose in the zoning ordinance. Majority vote required. F, in Article 3, general provisions, delete the current section E, agricultural, farm market, roadside farm stand, ag tourism, and replace it with agricultural farming as defined by RSA 2134A. Agricultural activities shall be permitted in all zones subject to the following regulations. Farm stands, which include any permanent structure, building, shall be subject to current zoning regulations and to site review by the town of Lee. 2, all temporary and permanent farm stands are required to be registered with the town of Lee Code Enforcement Office. Any temporary building structures are exempt from the definition of building structures as defined in Article 5, residential zone, in the town of Lee zoning ordinance as amended in Article 15, wet soils conservation zone, and are exempt from the setback provisions from Article 5, residential zone, and Article 15, wet soils conservation zone. However, they must be removed upon the conclusion of the seasonal activities. 3, farm roadside stands which do not comply with New Hampshire RSA 2134A3 are not permitted. 4, all temporary seasonal roadside farm stands shall be placed and operated in such a manner that does not create health or safety risks and may be subject to site review. 5, ag tourism, in order to be permitted use, the farm must be actively producing agricultural products for sale. Farms where the seller is not actively producing agricultural products for sale shall require a special exception. And this also majority vote is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, whereas zoning warrant articles are not to be voted at the meeting, I'll ask our town clerk to kindly place warrant article number 2 on the ballot. May I have Selectman Bugby present warrant article number 3?
Good morning, everyone. I move to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,060,000 gross budget for the purpose of adding onto the Lee Public Library, building a new municipal office building, relocating the train depot, aka the Lee Historical Museum, and repurposing the town annex. and to authorize the issuance of not more than $3,495,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1, whatever that means, as amended, and to authorize the Select Board to apply for and obtain and accept federal, state, or other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the Select Board to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds or notes to, and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and the majority and other terms thereof, and to authorize the Select Board to take any other action or to pass any other vote related thereto, including, but not limited to, withdrawing $375,278 from the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund created for this purpose, withdrawing $60,000 from the Lee Capital Reserve Fund, and withdrawing $129,722 from the Town Building Capital Reserve Fund. All of the said funds, including bond proceeds, to be used for designing, engineering, building, equipping said buildings. And further, to raise and appropriate the additional sum of $73,056 for the first year's interest payment on the bond. The Select Board recommends this article requires a 3/5 ballot vote to pass.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That was a mouthful. The Town Center Vision Committee has been working for a long time in terms of developing a plan to present to you. And today we're going to give you a short presentation. It's a little bit less than 30 minutes. And then we can take some questions afterwards. So with that, Cord Bloomquist will do the presentation. John Tappan will help him out. So it's yours.
Thank you. I'm doing my own AV and beverage service today. So just bear with me one moment. All right. All right, thank you everyone for attending this deliberative session, and I want to thank the moderator for granting our committee the time to talk to you about the Town Center project. We've got a lot to cover today, so I'll make our introduction short. I'd like to introduce my fellow committee members. Scott Bugby is our chair and Board of Selectmen representative. Ben Jeans is with us today as well, along with Patricia Jenkins, Bambi Miller, and John Tappan. We want to thank the Facilities Committee for their work in identifying the problems with the town's buildings and providing a path forward to the Select Board. Today we'll be reviewing the problems with our town center buildings, how to solve those problems, the conceptual designs we've developed, the cost and bond, and why the Select Board is pursuing this specific plan. I'm supposed to click a few times during that slide. First, let's make sure we know what buildings we're talking about. We're going to be addressing the 5 buildings that make up our current town center: the Lee Public Library, the Town Hall Annex, the Historical Society Museum, and the Tool Shed with Tramp Room. I want to begin by talking about our highest traffic building, the Lee Public Library. In 1962, the Central Schoolhouse was moved up Lee Hook Road to become the Lee Library. This 120-year-old building has seen several additions. The most recent was 22 years ago, and demand for library services continues to grow. According to 2017 state statistics, the library hosts 350 programs a year, has over 19,000 visits per year, has a collection of 25,000 volumes, including print, audio, and video, has an annual circulation of over 37,000 volumes, including over 12,000 children's volumes, and over 5,000 ebooks and downloadable audiobooks. Yet space in the library is increasingly limited, with story time spilling out of Story Corner, blocking access to the aisles. Note that these shelves are high for a children's section, but the library has had to grow up rather than out due to its lack of space. Larger programs are held in the basement, which is not ADA, that's Americans with Disabilities Act compliant. It's not insulated. Here you can see heat bleeding through the foundation walls. I've got several more of these rainbow images. This room also doubles as storage space and can quickly run short on room. Other events held in the central schoolhouse can be distracting to other patrons, and it also quickly fills up on space. The central schoolhouse also doubles as storage and a staff break area. Not many libraries feature a stove amongst the stacks. And according to a 2010 report from the New Hampshire Municipal Energy Assistance Program, the central schoolhouse has completely uninsulated walls, floors, and a basement. And here you can see in blue, blue means cold. The buildings need electrical upgrades, including basics like grounded outlets. Oh, my slides aren't looking correct here. And could easily reduce electrical costs by transitioning lighting to LED. It has only a single restroom. It needs its floors reinforced to handle library stack loads. And the dominant slide here with the rainbow colors shows its uninsulated windows, walls, floors, lack of heat recovering ventilation, and also multiple ADA compliance issues. And those ADA issues open the town up to liability unless the town adopts a plan of action to address those issues. Now let's talk about Town Hall. All right. Our town hall was recently added to the State Register of Historic Places. That status doesn't come with restrictions, but it does make it easier for Lee to qualify for grants. This Greek Revival style building once acted as a meeting place, but has since filled up with the town administrative functions. This includes the clerk, the tax collector, welfare, finance, and administration. This has carved the town hall into cubicles, but this makeshift office arrangement lacks room for meetings and confidential conversations, such as requests for tax exemptions or employee reviews, which must be confidential according to state RSAs. The police chief has advised the TCVC that there should not be any access to the town hall employees or records unless it is controlled. And that's a quote. But there is no limiting access to cubicles or file cabinets in the current town hall. Moreover, there is not room for these files. Instead, records are split between the town hall annex, the public safety complex, and this storage container, which has no temperature or humidity controls, making it a poor place to store records that the town is mandated to keep by a state RSA. Accessible meeting space consists of a folding table in the middle of an open room. This means that meetings disturb work in the adjacent cubicles. The committee space upstairs is inaccessible to anyone unable to navigate steps, and room for public meetings is vital. Lee's volunteer commissions and committees perform valuable work for the town. Because of this, meeting space should be made a priority. Next, let's talk about the physical state of this pre-Civil War building. Here you can see some of the temporary fixes under the town hall floor. The root cause of this damage, the dirt crawl space with limited ventilation, needs to be addressed. These conditions have led to rot and add to the discomfort of working in the town hall by making for frigid floors, requiring space heaters, such as this one I took a picture of a few weeks ago, which leads me to energy efficiency. This structure uses window AC units instead of an efficient climate control system. It has non-insulated windows and an aging and inefficient boiler. The latest engineering report noted that the electrical was beyond its service life and should be replaced. It has structural issues and lacks sufficient restrooms. Like the public library, the town hall also has multiple ADA compliance issues. Again, ADA issues open the town up to liability, and unless the town adopts a plan to address those issues, it also lacks a heat recovering ventilation unit. Instead, the building is ventilated through its porous walls, rotting floors, and through holes in its roof, such as the daylight here shining through the eaves. On the bright side, this may help to cool the town's computer server, which is stored in the eaves and cooled by this fan. That's supposed to be humorous. You may judge it otherwise. Next, let's talk about the second home to town administrative functions, the town hall annex. The annex was built in 1950 by volunteers on donated church land using timber from the town forest. It originally served as a firehouse. It now houses the planning, zoning, and code enforcement offices. This building also suffers from a lack of adequate storage space, inefficient mechanicals, including its boiler, a lack of proper ventilation, non-insulated windows, an aging and insufficient electrical system, poor lighting, multiple ADA and code compliance issues, and dangerous back into the road parking. This building would not be used in its current capacity if there were sufficient space to house all town administrative functions together. Next, let's talk about the Historical Society Museum. The South Lee Freight Depot, also on the State Register of Historic Places, was built around 1874 and stood at the junction of what is now Route 125 and Route 152. It is now home to the Lee Historical Society Museum. This building lacks sufficient display space for the Historical Society's collection, which means some of that collection now resides in a damp basement without adequate ventilation. That same basement is cracked, bowing inwards, and leaking. The second floor sags due to inadequate support, and heat is provided by a direct vent propane heater with no other climate control. For a bit of good news, let's talk about the tool shed with tramp room. This building is also on the State Historic Register of Historic Places and is one of the last remaining tramp or hobo accommodations in the state, and we have the receipts to prove that. This structure continues to be used for storing town equipment, and while it needs repairs, the structural reports note that they are minor. Finally, the parking lot can easily be cramped. It can be as cramped as the buildings. In this case, no special events or meetings were happening. This was a Friday after story time at the library when my son and I had just left the library, and there were 2 open spots. So that's the state of the buildings at our town center. All of them have upgrades and repairs that need to be made. The most heavily used, the town hall annex, and the library, are poorly insulated, energy inefficient, have code compliance issues, violate the Americans with Disabilities Act, and lack the necessary space to serve the needs of staff and the public. So how do we solve these problems? After evaluating 11 possible options, the Facilities Committee recommended purchasing land from the church and pursuing a plan that both renovates the existing buildings, solving the problems associated with each, and creating a new office building and library addition to address the space constraints. This land purchase cost just over $180,000, much less than the $250,000 approved by voters. But why not just renovate what we have? If you add up the total square footage of the town hall, the annex, the storage container, and the storage space used at the public safety complex, you get a total of 3,900 gross square feet. When the Town Center Vision Committee, working with LaValle Brenzinger Architects, calculated the program needs of the town hall functions, that's everything that goes on in those buildings and needs to be going on in those buildings, we came to 4,900 gross square feet. Some basic math shows that you need more space, 25% more space, and you can't get there by renovating. In fact, renovating shrinks the usable space in these buildings. It would add bathrooms, make ADA and code compliance changes, making space issues even worse. The same logic applies to the library. You can't fix everything that is wrong without reducing the usable space, making the crowding and overlapping uses in this building even worse. Instead, the Select Board's vision proposes to build new and to renovate. This takes advantage of the lower cost of renovation, about 60% lower than new construction, while giving the town the added square footage it needs by building new where needed. So let's move on to the conceptual design of the town center. Here is the proposed layout. This plan is centered around building a new municipal office building and an addition to the library. By building these 2 new structures at the same time, this plan leverages economies of scale in construction. We allow crews to stay on site to do multiple jobs, cutting costs compared to doing a multi-site or multi-stage plan. By keeping our buildings on one site, the buildings can share infrastructure. Common gas, well, septic, and telecom connections will be connected to the town center buildings. The meeting spaces in each building can be used for administration, library programs, town volunteers, or by members of the public. The town center buildings would also share a 78-space parking lot, set 50 feet behind, there's the parking lot, in case that was that needed a dock, which will be set 50 feet behind a green space. 2 driveways would replace what is currently 175 feet of paved frontage. Those driveways would provide 2 points of access, one near the existing town hall, and the other opposite Wednesday Hill Road, as recommended by the Department of Transportation. A fire cistern could also be added to this space, addressing a need that's part of the existing capital improvement plan. And these buildings have been cited to allow for expansion in future decades, so we're not boxed in like we are in the current layout. Here, I should underscore that this plan is conceptual. Things could change as this process moves forward, but we're confident that we've gotten the space needs correct. I thought through the trade-offs involved in the site layout and gotten a realistic, professionally estimated build cost with enough contingency that we can plan to spend less than the proposed budget. Next, let's zoom in on the Lee Public Library. The proposed addition to the library would extend the building eastward and add 3,900 square feet to the existing footprint, including a full, conditioned, but not finished basement. And this has also been cited, or is one of the buildings that has been cited, to allow for future expansion. Here's a view of the library with the expanded addition from the front. The new library layout creates a dedicated office space for staff, a central circulation desk, a new fully accessible restrooms, the New Hampshire room, a meeting space and a special collection space for local and state books, a periodicals and reading area, a space for expanded collections of adult fiction, or rather audio, adult fiction, nonfiction, and public computer use. The new display area would be located next to a central circulation desk, which would allow the library staff to see nearly all parts of the new library from a single workstation. And that display space is adjacent to the new periodicals and reading area. The new design would further create a dedicated young adult section, and a children's section would be separated from the adult area, making children's programs less distracting to other patrons. Here's a rendering of that children's section. Notice that unlike the current library, all of these shelves are accessible to small children, and there's a dedicated storytime space, no more sitting in the aisles. The central schoolhouse would become a dedicated gathering and event space, with two additional accessible restrooms and a kitchenette that can serve both the needs of public events and the library staff. This meeting room, along with the New Hampshire room, could be used not only for library-run events, but town functions, events or events organized by the community, capitalizing on the shared town center vision. The renovation of the existing library is one of 2 areas of this project where the town can leverage funding sources outside of the town. Because of the historical nature of the central schoolhouse and its proposed use as a community meeting center, it is well suited to grant applications. The Lee Public Library Community Center Foundation is also pledged to raise the funds for this portion of the library building, with funds already secured to go towards elements of this project like the children's area. This addition would improve access to the library's collection and meeting spaces for all residents. Currently, many of the areas of the library are inaccessible. And that collection would now be allowed to be retained and grow rather than be discarded. The library currently has a one-in, one-out policy. Next, let's talk about the new municipal office building. This building would create a 4,840 square foot home for the town center's customer service functions, again, including a full conditioned but not finished basement. This will mean bringing together the functions that are currently spread around the town hall annex, and doing away with storage containers altogether. This building has also been cited to allow for future expansion, reducing any future expansion costs. The layout would better serve residents of Lee by creating a lobby with service windows, allowing convenient access to administration, the town clerk, code enforcement, and planning and zoning, while providing a more secure work environment for staff and much improved security for town records. The public would be able to freely access the lobby, the 2 public restrooms, and the service windows. Those needing more access could be buzzed in through controlled access doors. This approach tries to find a balance between security and keeping Lee's Town Center friendly and approachable. It puts customer service functions up front while keeping offices and files safe. And I've made sure to note here that this design is conceptual, as the layout of the offices behind the lobby still needs refinement. But the concept of an open lobby with access control is key to the design of this building. The new layout provides space for secure record storage, offices or workstations for focused work, a dedicated meeting space, and room for confidential discussions, ensuring that the town is in compliance with state RSAs. Finally, the municipal office building will feature up-to-date electrical, mechanicals, and insulation, creating a much more efficient space. No more space heaters, window ACs, or ventilating through holes in the eaves or floor. With a new town office building, what would happen to the town hall? The town hall would return to its original function as a public meeting space at the heart of our New England tradition of self-governance. The clerk's office, or what is now the clerk's office, could become a dedicated office space or file storage space for committees and commissions. The second floor would also be renovated and available to those who can access it. And of course, the renovation would fix the floor and crawl space and replace the outdated electrical and mechanicals, add insulation, and repair the structure. And a kitchenette for refreshments will make it the perfect place to host dances, just as it did in 1842. The town hall is the second area of this project where Lee can leverage funding from outside of the town. The town hall can't be renovated until the municipal office building is complete and staff are relocated. During that time, the select board has proposed setting aside $200,000 over 2 years in a separate capital reserve fund for the town hall. By dedicating these funds towards the project, but not fully funding the project, the town will be able to pursue grants such as the New Hampshire L-CHIP or Moose Plate programs, which are usually awarded as matching funds. This approach, just like the library renovation, reduces the cost of this project to the town and allows Lee to build on the efforts of its Heritage Commission, who has worked to add our town hall to the State Register of Historic Places. The Historical Society Museum could also pursue similar grant funding thanks to its State Register status, but only after the town hall project is complete, as the town doesn't want to compete against its own grant applications. The Historical Society needs to be moved away from the library in order for the library to expand, as illustrated there. But this relocation would also solve the museum's foundation issues, as it would place the museum on a new basement on the east side of the expanded town center. The town hall annex can be used as a working space for committees during the renovation of our town hall. The conceptual design shows the annex being moved, but this could change during the design and construction phases of the project. If left where it is, it would not interfere with the parking or the site layout. Finally, there's the tool shed. A little bit of good news in all of this. Its modest structural needs can be addressed with local labor. These steps are all laid out in this basic approach to the stages of construction, renovation, and relocation. The first step would see the town solicit competitive bids for the final design and construction. Stage 2 would see the Historical Society and the Korean War Memorial moved. The municipal office building and the library additions would then be built. Stage 3 would see the town hall functions move into the municipal office building and the library functions move into the library addition. Stage 4 would see renovation of the current library space begin once funding is secured from the Lee Public Library Community Center Foundation. And stage 5 would see the library occupy that renovated space and addition, and the town hall renovations begin after grant money is secured. With that, I'll turn things over to John Tappan to discuss project costs and the bond.
We'll start with the conceptual project schedule. It's presented in two very simplified versions. In the optimistic version, the design would be completed and the construction company hired by October of 2019. New construction would be completed by July 2020, and renovations would be completed that winter, provided funding had been secured on time. In the more realistic schedule, design completion and construction company hiring would take up to a year because new construction would not start until springtime. Renovation would start the following spring and finish by the fall of 2021. The conceptual project budget is based on the estimate from the project architect. And 3 estimates from 2 independent cost consultants and by-owner cost estimates from vendors. The library addition costs $1.12 million. The municipal office building costs $1.56 million. And site development, which includes land clearing, relocating the museum, repurposing the annex, and installing utilities, parking lots, walkways, and landscaping, cost $997,000. And contingency at 10% is $368,000. And bond counsel may be up to $14,000 for a total of $4.06 million. The separately budgeted town hall renovation is expected to cost $398,000, and renovation of the existing library building is expected to cost $300,000. Funding sources. The town has existing capital reserve funds to draw on, and the balance will come from a bond. The total cost is $4.06 million. From the town building's capital reserve fund, the capital improvement plan shows expected withdrawals of $34,000 for town center buildings in the next 2 years, and leaving a balance of $93,000, an additional $95,000 could be withdrawn for a total of $129,000. At the beginning of the coming fiscal year, the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund will have a balance of $375,000, and there is $60,000 in the Library Capital Reserve Fund originally intended for the Library Community Center and now available for building or adding to the current library. The remainder, $3.495 million, would come from a bond. A level principal 20-year bond is proposed. The repayment of principal, shown in blue, is nearly the same each year, and as the remaining loan balance decreases, the interest payments, shown in orange, also decrease. The net interest cost for 20-year bonds issued by the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank on January 9th was 3.05%, which was a decrease from the 3.24% this past June. An interest rate of 3.5% is used here. If the bond were issued in the second half of fiscal year 2020, there would be no payment until fiscal year 2021. Tax rate increase for the town center project. This chart shows the tax rate amounts that would support the current debt service and the amounts that would support the proposed town center project costs. The reference level is the current tax rate, which includes 16 cents to pay for the Public Safety Complex bond retiring in fiscal year 2023, and 8 cents to pay for the transfer station bond retiring in fiscal year 2024. These amounts decrease each year. In fiscal year 2020, the town center bond would add 16 cents, and the appropriation to the new renovating town hall capital reserve fund would add 11 cents to the tax rate. This amount becomes 32 cents the following year. When the first repayment of principal occurs in fiscal year 2021, there is also predicted to be an increase in operating and maintenance costs due to the increase in town building floor area and an increase in insurance premiums for the increased building value. This is estimated to add 11 cents to the tax rate. This includes a maintenance staff increase of 20 hours per week and does not factor in any building efficiency improvements. In fiscal year 2020, the projected tax rate increase above today's rate is 26 cents. The largest increase is in fiscal year 2021, when the added debt service, plus increased O&M, plus the appropriation for town hall renovation will have added $1.05 to the current tax rate. In fiscal year 2022, this amount drops to 70 cents. What effect would this tax rate increase have on the tax bill? This year, the median house value in Lee is $229,500. This property valuation would see a tax increase of $59 in fiscal year 2020 and $241 in fiscal year 2021, dropping to $159 in fiscal year 2022. These amounts are not cumulative, they're relative to the baseline of today. Thank you, John. Quickly wrap up, I want to talk about the advantages of this plan and moving forward on the plan now. This plan allows the town of Lee to be proactive, addressing problems with the town's buildings before they become worse, potentially displacing town functions and employees. Other municipalities that have been forced to rent temporary office space when neglected buildings have failed, they have been forced, and we have already had a selectman fall through the floor of the town hall in the past. Look for the patch near the copy machine the next time you visit town hall. It's unwise for us to continue spending money on heating uninsulated floors, heating uninsulated basements, powering window AC units, and other temporary fixes. Investing in a comprehensive, well-planned solution to our town needs will break the cycle of Band-Aid solutions. This plan solves the space needs that will only be made worse by renovation alone. Bear with me as I get through these animations again. I thought I had condensed these. 20%, there we go. And this plan allows us to preserve our town's history in a way that makes financial sense, only building new when we need to. And by pursuing outside preservation funding, we can leverage the history of the town of Lee to benefit Lee's present. That is the receipt for the hobo shed, by the way. This plan also takes advantages of economies of scale in several ways. It creates one larger construction project rather than several small-scale renovations, which would each require remobilization of crews and more management overhead driving up costs. This plan also creates a unified town center with infrastructure such as gas, well, septic, and telecom, and shared meeting spaces, reducing build-out costs when compared to other options. This plan keeps emergency and non-emergency services separate, honoring the 50-year plan for the public safety complex. And finally, this town center project plan truly centers our town, keeping Lee a distinctly New England place by preserving our traditional town center, a town hall, public library, church, and school. These are the reasons the Select Board is pursuing this plan. It addresses real problems. It balances construction costs against long-term operating costs. It addresses the town's facilities needs for the long term. It capitalizes on our unique heritage, leverages scale, honors the town's emergency and safety commitments, and preserves our town center. The Town Center Vision Committee will have an additional public presentation before the town vote. That presentation will take place on March 6th at 7 p.m. at the Public Safety Complex. We encourage everyone here to attend. We'd also encourage you to follow us on Facebook and visit leetown.center.org, where you can subscribe to our email newsletter and get updates and share your feedback with us. We'll now try to answer your questions the best we can. Or I guess I will leave that up to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Cord and John. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up for any discussion and/or questions.
Sally Cedar, Home Fox Garrison Road. I've two questions. One, what is the concept of the storage shed slash tramp room moving forward? And two, the town now owns a new building, the Parish House, and so how does caring for that, or whatever happens to that, whether it's torn down or how does that work with your plan? Does it need to be torn down? And where does the money for caring for that building fit in with the town budget moving forward?
Thank you, Sally. Just a moment.
The first question about the tool shed with tramp room is going to stay where it is. The repairs that are needed are modest. They are not listed as part of this plan. It is on the State Register of Historic Places. It is of the buildings at Town Center. It was one of the most unusual in the state, so it's likely to be able to receive grants that may go a long way towards paying for the minimal amount of work that's needed. The structural assessment was that it's lightly built, but it has withstood the test of time. Well, it is currently used for storage of town equipment. There has been talk about it being used for the Historical Society for large implements or large items that they currently have no space for. But that decision hasn't been made as to exactly how that mix may be attained. Parish house. The parish house is almost entirely in the side setback to the property. The property line is very, very close to the eastern corner of the parish house. So in laying out where buildings would be moved to on the site, the parish house was not a factor. Whether it stays there, whether it's demolished, that didn't influence the placement of any buildings. There is a Article 16 talks about what the town may do or changing town plans for that building, postponing its movement or previously scheduled by last year's vote. And the buildings as they're placed right now are about 42 feet from the parish house. So if it stayed, it wouldn't be a problem.
I thought I'd just clarify, in case anyone doesn't remember last year's vote about purchasing the land, it said that the parish house would be removed. So as a committee, we couldn't act assuming that the legislative body would reverse itself on that. We had to act within what the legislative body had said, which is that the parish house would be removed. So the plan didn't take into account doing anything with the parish house, but thankfully because it was in the setback, we also didn't have to plan removing it or anything like that. So the committee was completely neutral with regard to the parish house.
Do I have any other questions and/or discussions for warrant Article 3?
Hi, Sue Bagdasarian, 3 Thornton Lane. You had mentioned in your presentation a few times about grant funding. Can you speak to what that process may look like and what those grants may cover as far as the overall expense of the project?
grant funding that was talked about are for those pieces of or buildings that have been taken out of the funding that we presented. So the town hall, the plan is over the next 2 years for the town to set aside $200,000, which is estimated to be about half the cost of renovation of that building. There's a warrant article coming up for creating a new fund for $50,000 this year. And the costs that I showed the $50,000 this year and $150,000 next year. That would be about half the cost, and the grants that would be pursued are mostly matching funds. So the town needs to put up money before the match could be received. For the other place where grants were talked about is larger grants, is the library renovation. And the library, the correct name of the facility, of the foundation.
I always get this wrong. Patricia can tell us, but it's the library
The
community.
Library Community, the Lee Public Library Community Center Foundation.
The Lee Public Library Community Center Foundation has volunteered to do the fundraising for that renovation. And some of that they've indicated would come from grants. They've also indicated that likely more of it, or a larger fraction of it, would come from private donations. They have already received I guess it's about a little more than a quarter of the estimated cost in donations. And then what wasn't talked about was the tool shed, and we do not have estimate on cost for that, but it's quite small compared to everything else we're talking about.
Thank you, John.
Hi, I'm Bob Woodward, Wednesday Hill Road. I'm expressing an opinion in favor of the plans we put together. Thank you very much for doing that. The one question I have is, what was the logic behind having the bond as a uniform principal payment, as opposed to a uniform payment, principal plus interest? That ends up front-loading the cost, the tax cost, and I suspect it would also minimize just a sum of the interest payments. But when you consider present value kinds of issues, how did that work out for you? Why did you make that choice?
The level debt service bond is an option. New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank does issue both, and that would result in lower payments in the early years and higher payments in the later years. It doesn't work out quite the way a mortgage does, where your mortgage is the same payment every year, but it's almost the same. And most municipalities have used level principal. There are some states that have had rules for their departments that they use level principal, and when they removed those rules, they then found that their departments tended to overextend themselves because it was easier to get into the bond. And this is truly is just me speaking. If you have level debt service, that means that that amount of payment is carried through the whole 20 years. And when that is ended, then in that next year, all of a sudden, the governing body finds that, whoa, our taxes just went down. So now's the time to fill it up with something else. That's just me giving my 2 cents.
Thank you, John. Do I have any other questions or discussion from the floor for warrant article number 3? There being no further discussion at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant article 3, please signify by raising your voter cards. Thank you. Those opposed to moving warrant article number 3, please signify by raising your voter cards. At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to please move warrant article number 3 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 3.
Thank you. There is a motion to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 3 has been made and seconded. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of warrant article number 3 please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 3 has been restricted by the vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Scott Bugby to present warrant article number 4.
I move to see if the town will vote to establish a renovating town hall capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35.1, renovating town hall, and to raise and appropriate $50,000 to be placed in this fund. Further, to name the select board as agents to expend from said fund. The select board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Second.
Thank you.
As you saw in the presentation that we just gave, or they just gave, the part of the plan to renovate the town hall, we need to set up, or in the plan is we need to set up a separate fund to fund the renovation of the town hall. Select board has determined they put in $50,000 this year, and the plan is to put in another $150 next year to make the total $200,000. As you saw in the presentation, many of the places that we could seek grants, for instance, the LCHIP, they look for a 50% match. And talking with the LCHIP people that run the particular program, putting money aside for that particular purpose gives us extra, if you will, brownie points in the grant process. So it shows a commitment by the town that we want to do this project and we're willing to spend money to do this project. So we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Scott. At this time, the floor is open for any questions and or discussions on warrant article number 4. There being no discussion at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant article number 4 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, may I ask Linda Reinhold, our town clerk, to move warrant article number 4 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 4. Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article 4. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of warrant article 4 please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 4 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. This time I'd like to turn the floor once again to Selectman Bugby for warrant article 5.
Shall the town of Lee raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by the vote of the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $4,117,240. Should this article be defeated, the default budget will be $4,065,766, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by the previous action of the select board or by law. Or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The select board recommends this article. The majority vote required.
Second.
All right, warrant Article 5 has been, motion has been made and seconded. I'd like to open the floor up for any questions and/or discussions on warrant Article number 5, our operating budget.
All right. Hopefully everybody has a copy of the operating budget. I'm going to get down through and talk about some of the highlights. The overall increase from FY19 is $51,474. The department budgets include a 2% cost of living increase and merit increases with an overall wage increase of about 3%. This includes related personnel costs such as retirement, things like that. Other budget items were reduced to mitigate this particular expense. The IT budget was reduced by eliminating costs for digitizing accessing records and reducing training and hardware expenses. Legal budget increased to reflect anticipated additional expenses. The personnel budget reflects additional costs associated with wage increases and additional firefighter in the fire department. It's another full-time firefighter. And health insurance is budgeted based on current population only. Workers' comp was reduced by about $18,000 to reflect a rebate from the insurance carrier. We had less claims. Numerous cuts were made to building maintenance as well. Energy and sustainability committees were cut by total $1,000 and $500 respectively. The cemetery custodian wages were increased by $900. The police department includes increases to overtime, heat, new equipment, and funding for leasing of tasers and Police One Academy training. And Stratford County dispatch for the police department increased by $302. So those are the highlights in terms of the budget. The fire department includes funding for, like I said, an additional full-time officer, additional hours for the part-time deputy, and a data plan for the fire trucks. Increases for vehicle maintenance and repair, uniforms, heat, and fuel. And there are decreases to the equipment maintenance, repair, contracts, and new equipment. And the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, a $2,000 reduction in supplies. Highway Department increased on-call wages and for capital salt and sand, and decreased funding for police vehicles, ground maintenance, and rental equipment. Transfer station increased various costs by a total of $5,653. Solid waste was reduced by about $7,000 for MSW, municipal solid waste, and increased for other decreased for other disposal costs for $12,000 to affect actual anticipated expenses. We added a new health agency this year, Cornerstone Visiting Nurses Association. The recreation budget funding was reduced for Oyster River Youth by $13,700 and $1,900 for events. And we cut the Lee fireworks in half to a total of $4,000. It's anticipated that the difference will be made up in fundraising. The library budget was increased by $1,500. And the Heritage, Agricultural Commission, and Conservation Commissions were not funded. And I think that's it. We've got some graphs in terms of operating expenses, the tax rate. We'll take questions. And the last page, you can see all the capital reserve funds. Summary.
Any questions or discussion to be addressed to Selectman Bugby?
You can talk about the reduction to the voice.
I'm sorry, you need to come up to the microphone. Thank you. And just kindly state your name and address.
Sure. Steve Desmond, Toon Lane.
Thank
I would
you.
like an explanation for the reduction to the Oyster River Youth Association budget, $13,700.
Oyster River Youth is, as some of us know, has been having some issues. And Durham has cut their funding significantly. And we filed suit. I'm not sure what Madbury is doing, but we reduced it from, asked for a little over 27,000, reduced it to 15.
Can you talk about what you mean by issues? It seems to justify the reduction.
In terms of how they operate their particular programs, they've had some problems in the past in terms of negative publicity, if you will. And
there was an incident.
Yep.
which was attributable to an individual.
Yep.
Do you realize how many kids are in this program?
Nope, I do.
I don't understand the concept of why you would take the support from the community for the children away based on, you seem like very vague, accusations, if you will. And you just take the subject away from them based on that?
They're in the process of looking at their funding sources, and they're looking to see, as far as I understand, the president's here, I believe, if he wants to speak to it, but.
My kids actively participate, I actively coach. I don't know if there's official representation, so I'm just simply, stating opposition to the concept of reducing it, because the community for years has supported this organization. It's about the kids, and it's staffed by volunteers. That's a pretty dramatic reduction in funding. Well, it just seems to be kind of swept through the process here.
It's my understanding they're also looking in terms of self-funding and not being funded by the towns going forward at some point.
There's a lot of self-funding that already happens. The town is essentially removing, or is it reducing its support or removing its support?
Reducing. Okay. So we still have $15,000 in the budget, which is a little bit more than half of what we gave them last year.
Okay.
So we're not reducing it, but at some point I think they're going to be self-funding. So.
But I don't know if they have a plan in place to.
I do not know that
reduction in revenue.
I do not know that either.
That has a direct impact on the parents and more importantly, kids.
Well, Durham's doing the same thing. I'm not sure what Madbury's doing, but they're in the process of reducing their support.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing that, Scott. Do I have any further discussion and/or questions for warrant article number 5 at this time? There being none, of all those in favor of moving warrant article number 5, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 5 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, may I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 5? Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 5. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 5, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 5 has been restricted by a vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to Chief Nemeth for warrant article number 6.
No. Looks heavy.
Good morning. Warrant Article 6, SCBA equipment. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum not to exceed $149,000 for the purchase of 20 self-contained breathing apparatus, meeting the current NFPA 1981 standard of open circuit self-contained breathing apparatus for emergency services, 2019 edition, and the NFPA 1982 standard on personal alert safety system, 2018 edition, and to authorize the withdrawal of this amount from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for this acquisition. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required. And as of 1/28/19, this fund has a balance of $408,575.
Second.
Thank you. At this time, the floor is open for discussion. Do I have any questions and/or discussions on warrant article number 6?
Hops, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. You're going to getting 20 of these units that you're going to be.
Correct. So we're going to be replacing the 20 that we currently have now.
20 that you currently have. And by my calculation, that comes out to how much per unit? 7,000?
So with the 20 units, 14 of them are going to come set up just as regular air packs, 6 of them we're going to get integrated TIC cameras on them, thermal imaging cameras. Also in this is the face pieces that we have to consider, and we're getting a RIT pack, which is a rapid intervention team pack. So that's if a downed firefighter is in a structure. Right now we have no setup that if we arrive on scene by ourselves, before mutual aid gets there, we have no way to go in there and rescue that firefighter. So if there's an issue with air pack, they run out of air, we have nothing to go in there and give them air. So that's part of this price as well. The air packs themselves that you're asking about is $4,700 roughly per pack. And when you have the TIC camera added into it, it's $5,600.
Okay. Yeah, well, when you heard scuba, I'm sure, I know, regular scuba, that seems extremely high, but I guess I haven't priced these things for that. I guess that's what it is for that.
So these packs are different than scuba packs.
Yeah.
And a lot of these have electronics in them, and that increases the price. The pack that we're currently looking at is the MSA Air Pack. It has integrated voice amplifier that our current packs do not have. Like I said, 6 of them are going to have the thermal imaging cameras built right into them, so more of our firefighters will be able to see that are in the buildings. So there is definitely a price difference.
John Puffer, James Farm Road. Good morning, and I support the purchase of these things. It seems like it's pretty dangerous work to do when you need this kind of technology. I'm curious, though, why we have, if we have $400,000 already in the fund, why we need another $149,000.
We're asking to remove the $149,000 from that account. So this isn't going to be taxed. We already have this money.
Very good.
The other thing that I just want to mention is the current packs that we have are Scott Air packs. They last 15 years from the manufacturing date, and currently the ones that we have are 2005, but they were manufactured in April. So if we come to the voters next year, by the time the money is available for us in July, our air packs will be out of date. So we needed to move forward a year early.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have any other questions and/or discussion on warrant article number 6? There being none at this time, will all those in moving warrant article number 6 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'm going to ask our town clerk to move warrant article 6 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 6.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article 6. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of article 6 please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 6 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. Once again, can I have Chief Nemeth present warrant article number 7?
Warrant Article 7, thermal imaging camera, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum not to exceed $11,000 for the purchase of a thermal imaging camera meeting current NFPA 1801 standard on thermal imagers for the fire service, and to authorize the withdrawal of this amount from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for this acquisition. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions and or discussion for warrant article number 7?
Bob Hart, Tuttle Road. Could you explain what the heck this is, what it does, how it will be used?
So we currently have 3 thermal imaging cameras on our vehicles at this time. The ones that we're replacing right now is 13 years old. Technology's changed. It's just like the presentation you saw earlier on the town buildings with the thermal imaging cameras that show the cold and the heat. The firefighters use this when we go into the building. We're searching for victims. It gives us a layout, and there's different color palettes that we use for the camera. So if we're looking for a victim, It will show a difference in the temperature between the person and the fire. It also helps us out with hot spots if we're looking for overhaul to put the fire out, make sure that there's no fire behind the walls. We're introducing them into our air packs hopefully, but that just gives other firefighters the chance to have that. Currently, just the officer has the thermal imaging camera. A couple years ago, I went into a building and we started searching the first floor, and the floor was burnt out in front of us and there was a big hole. And that camera allowed us to see that hole and the heat coming through the floor that we couldn't see with all the smoke. We can also use it on the outside of the building if we're looking for the fire on the outside as command or as an officer so we know where we're going. We can scan the whole building and see the fire from the outside if the windows are blocked with smoke and we can't see where the fire is coming from. Also, with the packs and the cameras that we currently have, if we're searching for somebody out in the woods, same thing. We can look for their heat signature on the camera and we can go find them faster.
Are they light enough to be put on a drone?
On a drone?
Yeah.
I don't know how much a drone can carry.
Oh, but I mean, I've seen these search and rescues that get lost in the woods and they have aerial views with a thermal imager.
Yep.
Does this thing have that for that?
I wouldn't think so. I'm pretty sure the drones have their own built-in cameras. This is separate. The unit itself weighs about 5 pounds. It's roughly about that big. The ones that we currently have are a lot larger. A couple years ago, we purchased one of the new cameras, and that's what we're looking to do is to update an older camera with the same type that we have so that on any truck, if you grab that camera, it's the same camera.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. At this time, do I have any further discussion and/or questions on warrant article number 7? There being no further discussion at this time, all those in favor of moving warrant article 7, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 7 to the ballot.
Can the moderator vote to restrict reconsideration of Article 7?
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 7. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 7, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. All those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 7 has been restricted by the vote of this deliberative body. Once again, Chief Nemeth, can I ask you to present warrant article number 8, please?
Warrant Article 8, Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 to be deposited into the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Second.
Can I open the floor up for any discussion and/or questions?
Hi, Jenny Messiter, 147 Wadley Falls Road. So the prior two articles total 160, if my math is good. And this Article 8 is basically replacing that and adding another 15,000.
Correct. So to explain this, the capital reserve fund for us is like a savings account. We have a 20-year plan that actually looks almost out to 30 years to replace all the equipment in the fire department, the major purchases that we have. So in the plan right now, we have it set up for replacement of engine 1, engine 2, the rescue truck, and the tanker 30 years from now, 20 years from now, we'll replace that. The other things that come out of that is the thermal imaging. So as we spend the money, hopefully purchasing this new equipment, we still have to replace the funds for the future purchases on the equipment that we're going to install.
Okay, so you're looking farther down the road.
Correct.
To larger expenses.
Correct. This is pretty much a savings account to buy future fire trucks to replace what we have.
Thank you.
Bob Woodward, Wednesday Hill Road.
Yeah, same question, although phrased a little bit differently. I'm totally supportive of the things you approved, and I also would support putting a little bit of extra money aside for the reserve fund. But it seemed one of your answers that you gave for the previous
questions was, it's coming from the reserve fund, so we don't have to raise taxes. But that's a little bit kind of circuitous because we really are voting for those, replacing those funds. To the town council, I would have hoped that you would have put those items down as money to be appropriated and then only asked for the capital reserve fund to be increased by the amount that it really is being increased.
So you're correct. The money that we're asking for with the thermal imaging camera and the air packs has been taxed by the residents, and you've already put that into the savings account, capital reserve. And the $175,000 is to replace that for the future purchases. So you are correct. It has been taxed, but at this time, that money for those items is already in the account, and so we're not looking to tax that. Just take it out.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have any further questions and/or discussion for warrant article number 8? There being no further discussion at this time, will all those in favor of moving Article 8, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? I'm going to ask our town clerk, please move warrant article number 8 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, move to restrict reconsideration of Article 8.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 8. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of article number 8, please signify by raising your voter cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 8 has been restricted by the vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Selectman LaCourse to present warrant article number 9.
Warrant article number 9, Town Buildings Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 be deposited into the Town Building Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote is required. As of January 28, 2019, this fund has a balance of $218,883. This is a typical fund that we use to place money in as a bank account to take care of our buildings. We just got through talking about the town hall and other buildings that are involved in the town itself. So it's a protection fund. Things go wrong, roofs leak, windows don't work. There's always something that goes wrong with what's called, buildings been around for a while.
Thank you, John. And I open the floor up at this time for any questions or discussion on warrant article number 9. There being no discussion at this time, will all those in favor of warrant article number 9, please signify by raising your voter cards. Thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to please move warrant article number 9 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 9.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 9. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of article 9 please signify by raising your voter cards. And I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 9 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Selectman Brown to present warrant article number 10.
Hello. Good morning. Warrant Article 10 deals with Highway Department Road and Bridge Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $50,000 to be deposited into the Highway Department Road and Bridge Improvement Plan Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. A majority vote is required. This is basically maintaining capital reserve fund. As you see, It has currently $471,000 in it. And it's always the town's plan, as you've seen in the past with other capital reserve funds, to stay ahead of it. Because there's always expenses coming up, capital expenses that are in the capital plan.
Second.
Do I have any questions and/or discussion for warrant article number 10? There being none at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant article number 10 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to please move warrant article number 10 to the ballot, please.
Madam Moderator, may I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 10?
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 10. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 10, please signify by raising your voter card. I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 10 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to ask Selectman Brown to please present warrant article number 11.
Warrant Article 11, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $55,000 to be deposited into the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Second.
I'd like to open the floor up for questions and/or discussion for warrant article number 11. If there being no discussion or questions at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant article number 11 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. And I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to please move warrant article number 11 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, move to restrict reconsideration of Article 11. Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 11. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 11 please signify by raising your voter card? I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 11 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. One more time, I'd like to ask Selectman Brown to present warrant article number 12.
Warrant Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be deposited into the Transfer Station Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote is required.
Second.
I'd like to open the floor up for questions and/or discussion for warrant article number 12. There being no discussion at this time, will all those in favor of moving Article 12 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. And I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I would like to ask our town clerk to please move warrant article number 12 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 12.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 12. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 12 please signify by raising your voter cards? I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 12 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Chief Nemeth to present warrant article number 13.
Warrant Article 13, Fire Ponds and Cisterns Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a sum of $20,000 to be deposited into the Fire Ponds and Cistern Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Second.
And at this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions and/or discussion of warrant article number 13.
Bob Hart, Tuttle Road. Town Center Complex plan. Does that include some kind of a fire pond?
Yep, so...
Does this go into it?
So the capital reserve, like we just talked about with fire equipment, this is the same setup. So there's a future plan to add cisterns throughout town. One of them was the center of town. So with this new project, the perfect place would be at the town center. And the current setups for the cisterns, if we do a fiberglass tank, which we have a bunch in town, they have a 100-year lifespan. It's roughly $80,000 per cistern. We've been looking into concrete cisterns as well, and that brings the price down a little bit, but not much. So it's the same as it's a future planning tool, putting this money away so we can add more to the town.
But is there any overlap with this with the town center plan? That's what I'm getting at in terms of funding. Does the town center plan include funding for cisterns, or is this cover it?
In the plan that was presented, there's no cost for the fire cistern. The cisterns, it has been the plan for years, the cisterns are paid for from this fund. And so the only thing that the Town Center Vision Committee did is in the site plan, meet with the fire chief to ask, where would you like it? But no part of that Town Center project there's no funding there for the cistern itself.
Good, thank you.
So this would actually pay for that cistern.
Thank you, Chief. Have I any other questions and/or discussion for warrant article number 13? There being no further discussion at this time, will all those in favor of warrant article number 13 being put on the ballot, please signify by raising your voter card. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 13 to the ballot.
And the moderator move to restrict reconsideration of Article 13.
Motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 13. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 13 please signify by raising your voter cards? I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 13 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Selectman LaForce to present warrant article number 14.
Reevaluation Capital Reserve Fund. See if town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be deposited into the Reevaluation Capital Reserve Fund. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote is required.
Second.
This is a standard request to put money into this account, and obviously what it takes care of is reevaluating the town.
All right, at this time, I open the floor up for any discussion and/or questions for warrant article number 14. There being none at this time, will all those in favor of moving Article 14 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 14 to the ballot.
And the moderator move to restrict reconsideration of Article 14.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article 14. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 14 please signify by raising your voter cards? I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 14 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At This time, I'd like to invite Selectman LaForce to present warrant Article 15.
Internal Service Fund for Accrued Benefits. To see if the town would vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be deposited into the Internal Service Expendable Trust Fund for accrued benefits. The Select Board recommends this article, majority vote required.
Second.
This is, again, one of those funds that we do every single year to make sure there's enough funds in there so when people do retire, there's enough to balance out their life.
Thank you, John. At this time, I open the floor up for discussion and/or questions. Warrant Article number 15. There being none at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant Article number 15 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant Article number 15 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 15.
Second.
And a motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant Article number 15. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 15, please signify by raising your voter cards. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant Article number 15 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Selectman Bugby to present warrant Article 16.
Shall the town suspend efforts to remove or demolish the Lee Parish House until July 1st, 2020, to allow the Lee Heritage Commission sufficient time to explore options for its preservation and future use, and to submit a proposal for the March 2020 ballot. The Select Board recommends this article. Majority vote required.
Second.
Yes, when we purchased the warrant article last year to buy the parish property, the property from the church with the parish house on it, part of the wording of that warrant article was to remove that particular structure from the property, either by dismantling it or physically demolishing it. The Lee Heritage Commission has taken on the effort to see if we can actually do something with it. There's a group that's meeting next Tuesday for that particular purpose. And they'd like the opportunity an extra year to find out, one, what we could do with it, if we want to leave it there, what would we use it for, what the cost would be to do that, and also explore grants in terms of doing anything if we actually were to keep it. But they need some extra time. And as we heard earlier, the town center project does not impede upon that particular structure, so it could stay there if we wanted it, but it could be removed as well. But if you're also interested, next Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the Public Safety Facility, there is a meeting. So if you're interested in that particular project, I believe you'd be welcome to attend. Also, the person that's chairing that particular committee is here, so he might want to say a few words. I don't know if he's interested. But it's an interesting building. Some people want to keep it, some people want to get rid of it. But I think we need a little bit extra time to give that particular committee time to explore options.
My name is Dennis Buckman, Wadley Falls Road. I'm the Heritage Commission. And we feel very strongly that we owe it to ourselves and future generation to see if there's any possibility of saving that building. We also feel that the building as it stands has a considerable value. And perhaps the worst waste of taxpayer money would be to purchase a building only to pay more money to have it demolished a bit later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I any other comments and or questions for warrant article number 16?
Cox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. I support this article. I want to get it as it is, and I'm just feeling that we haven't really got a good chance to present this to the whole town in the form that we have here. We don't know who's speaking for or people aren't arguing that, for this or against this. So we're just sort of putting it forward, and sort of, it'd be nice to have a little more comment and discussion in the community and how we might do this. It's not thinking in this format.
Thank you. Have I any further discussion?
Ann Tappan, Stepping Stones Road. I think that I've heard that this building was put on the list for 7 to save. Is there someone that could speak to that?
Yes, this particular building was presented to the New Hampshire State Preservation Alliance, something like that. But they run the 7 to Save program. So an application was submitted, pictures of the building, history of the building, its current condition. And this last year, we went to a presentation. It was in Washington, New Hampshire. If you've ever been to Washington, New Hampshire, go. It's in the middle of nowhere, but it's a wonderful place. We were awarded, well, the town was awarded, if you will, or the building was awarded, a list on the 7 to Save. So 7 properties in the state of New Hampshire were picked. That particular structure was one of them. They felt it was worthy of preservation. Also, that makes it also very, very nice in terms of grants going forward. So I think the possibility of us using it for something else is there. The possibility of getting grant money for any kind of restoration or whatever is there. But this particular article gives us a little bit extra time to go out and find out that information, come back to this body with a presentation in terms of what to do with that particular structure. It might be to remove it, might be to keep it, might be keeping it using for different purposes, but it gives us time to look into those particular things. So, yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Paul Gazowski, 46 Lamprey Lane. I too support this warrant article and the effort to allow more time for the Heritage Commission and others to explore the options for this building. I see potential here, and I went on the tour of the building when it was offered before the property was purchased. Having said that, and I said this to the select board earlier, we will have a situation here where we will have a group pursuing grant funding for the town hall, and a group, the Library Community Foundation, pursuing grant funding for the renovation of the library, the historic part of the library, and perhaps a group here pursuing grant funding for preservation of this property. I think it's very important, and I'm not sure to what extent as our lead governing body, beyond the voters, that the select board can exercise oversight over these efforts to see that folks don't end up competing with each other. But I would encourage you as a select board to try to do that. More than that, I would encourage those who are pursuing funding, and we certainly hope to be a part of that on a number of fronts, to exercise common awareness, good communication with other commissions and committees, and of course communication with our town administrator and the select board as you move forward. I think the good communication will be critical to the success of these efforts. So I just would like to state that here. Thank you.
And I thank you. Have I any further questions and or discussion regarding warrant article number 16?
That's been talked about. I think in terms of, I can't speak for the other two gentlemen, but the idea would be that we don't compete against ourselves. A conversation that I've had with the people that award these grants, they said, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't submit 2 grants at the same time from the same entity. So I think in terms of going forward, I think probably the town hall and would be first. I think in terms of what the Library Foundation is doing is kind of separate in terms of separate programs, possibly, I don't know. But there's potentially, you could go for the town hall, You go for the hobo shed, tool shed with tramp room. Most of us know it as a hobo shed. The freight depot and the parish house. And none of those particular grants can go forward without the select board signing off on them. So that's the conduit to make sure that we're not submitting 2 grants, the same program in the same year. So they have to be staggered.
Thank you, Scott. Any further discussion and or questions for warrant article number 16? There being no further discussion at this time, will all those in favor of warrant article 16 being moved to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter cards at this time. I thank you. Those opposed? I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 16 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 16. Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article 16. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 16 please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 16 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Selectman Brown to present warrant article number 17.
Warrant Article 17, contingency. See if the town will vote to establish a contingency fund for fiscal year 2018 for unanticipated expenses that may arise, and further to raise and appropriate $20,000 to go into the fund. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance and no amount to be raised from general taxation. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. The governing body shall annually publish a detailed report of all expenditures from the fund. The select board recommends this article. Majority vote is required. Thank you.
Do I have a second?
Particular year on that particular warrant article should be 2020, not 2018. How do we make that change?
Just make a motion to amend for the article. There is a motion on the floor to do a clerical correction to the year on the warrant article. I open the floor for any discussion. There being none, all those in favor of amending this warrant article, please signify by raising your voter cards. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I do have an amendment to the warrant article 17 as a clerical correction. I now open the floor up for discussion for warrant article number 17.
Our road. This fund always mystifies me a bit. Have we ever actually used this type of fund?
Selectman Brown,
what?
can you speak to that? Or?
You can have the town administrator answer.
You would like enlightenment on the utilization of the contingency.
I'm not clear what unanticipated expense can pop up that isn't covered elsewhere.
The short answer is yes, we have used this fund in past years.
But like
I don't believe that we've ever used the full 20,000. And there is a report every year in the annual report that spells out each item that it was used for and the dollar amounts.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Do I have any other questions and or discussion pertaining to warrant article 17?
8 Cedar Home, Fox Garrison Road. I have to say something. I think it's cool that this comes from the fund balance, because then if we don't need it, it goes back to the fund balance. So, and I recall at least one or two things when I was in my brief selecting phase that we did use some of that money. I don't recall what it was for, but it came in very handy.
Thank you for your comments. Any further discussion and/or questions on warrant article number 17? All those in favor of moving warrant article number 17 to the ballot as amended, please signify by raising your voter cards. Thank you. All those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move amended warrant article number 17 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I vote to restrict reconsideration of Article 17.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 17. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 17, please signify by raising your voter card. Thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 17 has been restricted by vote of this deliberative body. At this time, I'd like to invite Julie Glover to present warrant article number 18, citizens petition.
Do you support the following resolution and request the Select Board to forward it to our U.S. Senators and House Representatives? Whereas nuclear war is not healthy for children or any other living thing. Whereas the detonation of even a small number of nuclear weapons could have catastrophic human and environmental consequences that could affect everyone on the planet. Whereas the United States continues to reserve the right to use nuclear weapons first, which reduces the threshold for nuclear use and makes a nuclear war more likely. Whereas the United States President has the sole and unchecked authority to order the use of nuclear weapons. Whereas the United States, as well as Britain, China, France, and Russia, are obligated under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to take concrete steps towards eliminating their nuclear arsenals. Whereas in July 2017, 122 nations approved the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which makes it illegal under international law to develop, test, produce, manufacture, or otherwise acquire, possess, or stockpile nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices. Therefore, we call on the United States to lead a global effort to prevent nuclear war by renouncing the option of using nuclear weapons first, ending the sole unchecked authority of any president to launch a nuclear attack, taking United States nuclear weapons off hair trigger alert, canceling the plan to replace its entire arsenal with enhanced weapons, actively pursuing a verifiable agreement among nuclear-armed nations to eliminate their nuclear arsenals.
Second.
Thank you, Julie. I open the floor at this time for any questions and/or discussion of warrant article number 18.
Fox, 36 Captain Smith Emerson Road. I was the one who, among others, who gathered signatures to put this on the ballot. We needed 25. We have over 50 signatures. I'm sure I could have gotten a lot more than that. This is part of a movement called Back from the Brink, which the Union of Concerned Scientists and Physicians for Social Responsibility have put forward, seeing that this is one of the most pressing issues of our time. That if these weapons are ever used, that it would make climate change and other things be peanuts compared to what could happen. So I think it's only prudent that we talk to our legislators and those in power, that we do things to eliminate this danger. That it's as much, it's a moral issue. We have our sustainability committees and others that are working with conservation, or Conservation Commission Ag, to maintain the land for production, for sustaining life on Earth. and we must do what we can to see that this is not jeopardized. And I think this is the least that we can do. The town of Durham, the town council has approved a similar thing. There's issued an article before the state legislature, very similar to this, calling the state legislature says that we must do away with these nuclear weapons. And there are other towns. I know actually it's this Council of U.S. Mayors, all the mayors of the cities have approved this same resolution. And I think we need as a town to stand forward and say, yes, we don't want to be held hostage by these implements that man has created and is making us much more unsafe than what we would be if we maintain peace. Thank you.
All right, I thank you for bringing your petition forward for this warrant article, Chuck. The floor remains open for any further discussion and/or questions. There being none at this time, will all those in favor of moving warrant article number 18 to the ballot, please signify by raising your voter card. I thank you. Those opposed? At this time, I'd like to ask our town clerk to move warrant article number 18 to the ballot.
Madam Moderator, I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 18.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to restrict reconsideration of warrant article number 18. Will all those in favor of restricting reconsideration of Article 18, please signify by raising your voter cards. And I thank you. Those opposed? Reconsideration of warrant article number 18 has been restricted by vote of the deliberative body. I invite any of the selectmen, if they have any closing remarks.
I think this is almost a record time for one of these deliberative sessions, so I want to thank the Madam Moderator for doing a very efficient moderating. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. At this time, I would like to charge to the inhabited inhabitants of the town of Lee, county of Stratford, state of New Hampshire, qualified to vote in town affairs. You are hereby notified to meet at the Public Safety Complex, 20 George Bennett Road, Lee, on March 12, 2019, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I will entertain a motion. I move. There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. Thank you. And seconded. And I thank you all for attending the Town of Lee 2019 deliberative session. Please be sure to come out and vote at the Public Safety Complex, March 12, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Have a great day, everybody. Stay warm.